Today in my remarks, I want to talk briefly about the purpose of business. To do that, I'm going to start by telling you a story, a very personal story. My dad died 10 years ago, and 5 years ago, my mom began to really struggle with dementia. 3 years ago, we moved her into a home that we very carefully had chosen. And for the first 4 days in that home, I stayed overnight with her to help the transition, because I remembered when we moved into a new house and I had a new bedroom, she did that for me as a child. And in those days that I stayed with her, I was inspired by this amazing group of caretakers on 3 North, a group of women who had worked together for over 10 years with older people who were losing their mobility, losing their memories, and losing their identities. And they created an amazing sense of intimacy and community. And they taught me a lot about how I should care and interact with my mom in this new phase of her life. I left very touched, and I left stronger and a deeper person. Fast forward 2.5 years, this past January, I was on one of my regular trips out to New Jersey to spend the day with my mom. And she kept saying, "Things have changed, things have changed." And I said, "What's going on?" She goes, "Things have changed." And I went in her bathroom. There were no towels. I looked underneath her sink. There were no toiletries. I went to find someone to help us, and I couldn't recognize any of the people I interacted with. So I went back in my room with her room, and I started Googling on my iPad. And I found out that this small, privately held chain of senior living homes had been sold to a very famous private equity firm 18 months ago. And that they'd done an amazing deal. It was brilliant. They'd taken the real estate from this chain and put it into a real estate investment trust and sold that off. And then they'd created a separate management company, which they were still holding on to. You guys know this drill. You guys know this story. I am certain that the owners did this to raise capital, cut costs, increase returns. And my guess is that they were quite successful. But at what expense? I would ask you, at what expense? Now you may say, "Don't be naive, Sally. You're a business school dean. You're all in. You know the game. Isn't that the point? To maximize shareholder value." But I want to remind you, before you graduate, that that is not the point. The sole purpose of a corporation is not to maximize profits for its shareholders and owners. Just last summer, the Supreme Court wrote, "While it is certainly true that a central objective of for-profit corporations is to make money, modern corporate law does not require for-profit corporations to pursue profit at the expense of everything else." Now, the truth is, I am a big believer in business. It is the most powerful and potent social institution of our day, creating jobs that have lifted hundreds of thousands out of poverty each year over the last decade, and circling the globe with the internet, social media, and other innovations that have created unprecedented levels of market access and opportunity. Yet I would argue that we have not yet realized business's full potential for improving our world. Yes, many businesses do social good. Many business owners choose to reduce profits in order to pay higher wages and create better working conditions. They contribute to charitable foundations and offer goods and services on a pro bono basis. But in my experience, traditional companies can only go so far. I was personally saddened when Indra Nooyi, CEO of PepsiCo, got broadly criticized by analysts and became a target for potential activist investors because they felt she was straying too far from profit-making by her Performance with a Purpose initiative. You see, the challenge is the majority of investors, and indeed most of the people I know, choose to own shares in companies like PepsiCo that are under pressure from the investment community to maximize profit over going too far on social good. Now, this is because most of the people I know, including me, want to earn more money rather than less on our investments. We all want to retire sooner rather than later. And to the extent that we pursue social good, we typically choose to do it through direct philanthropy. After all, that's what Nobel Prize winner Milton Friedman told us to do in his now very famous 1970 New York Times essay entitled, "The Social Responsibility of Business is to Increase Profits." Now, the post-2008 decade has shown us that even the most brilliant economic theorists are not always right. You can clap, that's true. And recent data and experiments have begun to show that philanthropy alone cannot create the impact on people and our planet with the scale and efficiency that focused market investments have the potential to do. To do that, we need more people creating companies and investment pools to fund those companies that bring social principles to the forefront. Companies that are designed to address social good while also making a reasonable profit. Consider a Kellogg team from our part-time program that recently got financed to plant poplar trees in former industrial sites, with a plan to turn Midwestern brownfields into sustainable and profitable tree farms. Or Tiago Pinto and his wife Luciana Oliveira, both full-time students graduating today, have a viable plan and financing in hand to create a recycling credits market in Brazil. Or the work of the Kellogg Mint team, trained in social impact investing, that secured angel investment for an educational startup that develops iPad applications to help children with autism build skills, learn more effectively, and grow developmentally. These are all great initiatives. As you can tell, my experience with my mother this winter has catalyzed me. As a business school professor, I have long known that we can provide good senior care, good child care, wetlands remediation, and reasonably priced payday loans to the working class and still make a profit. But this year, I have come to appreciate with more vigor the need for each of us as business leaders and investors to be more conscious in our choices and to be honest about what we can and cannot achieve socially in different business settings. To make this really concrete, as we look forward to a future with 8, 9, and 10 billion people on this planet, a planet that only 250 years ago was home to only 300 million, a population level that experts estimate had held steady for the prior 2,000 plus years. That's a lot of growth in a short amount of time, from 300 million to 8 billion. In that world, I would encourage each of you to consider targeting some portion of your investments, be it your labor or your capital, say 5, 10, or 25% of your portfolio, toward supporting for-profit companies that embrace social goals first, either human or environmental. And if we make slightly lower returns on that part of our portfolios in the process, we can each consider that difference a part of our charitable giving. After all, it doesn't take a finance or accounting professor to know that foregone gains are 100% tax exempt. At Kellogg, our purpose is to educate, equip, and inspire leaders who build strong organizations and wisely leverage the power of markets to create lasting value. We develop brave leaders who do this by inspiring growth in people, organizations, and markets. And we know that market growth in and of itself will not be able to solve the ever-widening social problems that we will collectively confront over the next 50 years, be it water, education, or jobs. It is only through human intervention, through real people, Kellogg graduates, that we can bring concepts of fairness, morality, and sustainability to life in markets. It is only through people that markets grow wiser and kinder.